Okay, hopefully everyone can hear me. So thank you very much for that presentation, Julie and Di. Now, having heard about how and why infants are vulnerable during sleep, and how families can promote safe sleep through behaviour and product selection, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how the industry and marketing affects the choices that parents make. So how does product design and marketing and regulation influence infant sleep practices? There are a myriad of products for sleeping, settling, soothing, and transport of infants, and infants sleep sometimes for a prolonged period of time in all of them. And this is a global market, and yet regulatory approaches vary between jurisdictions. So KidSafe Queensland, in collaboration with a range of other health industry and research partners, developed what we call a best practice guide for the design of safe infant sleep environments. The first thing to say is that it's not just about the cot. A safe sleep environment is the sum of many parts, combinations of products and practices that are to a large extent beyond the control of the individual product designer or supplier. Therefore, coming up with a guide that addresses product-specific risk associated with infant sleep needs to be set within the broader context of infant sleep behaviours, such as we've just heard about. So whether the sleep occurs in a designed infant sleep product, such as this one, depends on the choices that parents make. Those choices can be considered and planned months before a baby arrives or forced by circumstance. Best made plans are often abandoned, and despite best intentions, we often end up on the couch or in a hastily arranged co-sleeping situation. And I have to say that this dog of mine, Winter, she's a Swiss Shepherd, is currently sleeping in the cupboard behind me, which is also quite improbable if you realise how big she is. It's important to realise that there are products marketed for every situation. So the principle of this guide is that regardless of the situation, the product range on offer and the marketing of that product should be developed with a firm understanding of what makes a sleep environment safe. However, mixed messaging is a huge issue. Products are often marketed with messaging that conflicts with or contradicts health messaging. One of the common issues is conflicting verbal and visual messaging. So this baby beanbag is not a sleep product. In Australia, it's required through legislation to have a warning label stating that it is not suitable as a sleeping surface for infants. It is not specifically marketed as a sleep surface, but as a transportable device for soothing infants. Note that it has a restraint system allowing or encouraging periods without direct supervision. And yet the advertising images clearly show a sleeping infant in a compromised chin on chest position. The risk of the product is further compounded by the fact that beans settle and compress over time, and that the buyer has an option to buy the bag flat packed and fill their own product. And this can lead to underfilling of the product and further compound poor positioning of the infant. Back to the womb is a marketing strategy that appeals to our desire to comfort and coddle our infants. And I suspect the success of this marketing strategy varies across global markets, as there are some practices designed to build resilience in babies, such as what's called lufting the baby or airing the baby, which is common practice in Denmark, where they bundle the babies up in the pram and leave them out in the cold to sleep. Still, there are many products marketed as being safe and womb-like, claiming that they are the only way to settle your infant. Unlike the womb, these devices do not always support safe respiration. The DockATot and other similar products were originally marketed for soothing and use words like nest and womb. However, as a sleep surface, the risk of suffocation is increased by the soft padding at the sides. The mattress firmness standard AS 8811 was developed in 2013 in Australia, but to date has only been mandated in the US. Unfortunately, that standard is silent on the side elements of the sleeping product. It specifies a firmness test for the horizontal surface only. The US has recently acted to ban crib bumpers over concerns about the suffocation risk created by a padded side element. And presumably as a result, the US DockATot website carries prominent warnings regarding its unsuitability as a sleep surface. However, on the Australian website, I really had to hunt for this. So the safety warning says, never use in a crib, bassinet, or other contained area. Keep away from wall or other vertical structure. Baby can move between DockATot and side structure and become entrapped and suffocate. Use on a flat, firm, stable surface. Never use to carry a child, and never use on a surface from which the baby can fall. So this warning was found only by looking for the safety section right at the bottom of the web page. And even with the warning, the website claims that their product was born out of a long history of co-sleeping practices in Sweden, suggesting that this is a safe co-sleeping device. And the warning does not specifically address the risk of infants sleeping in the product when not placed in the cot. Another strategy that is used to calm and settle babies is swaddling. But what is best practice, and more importantly, what does it look like in the real world? So rather than just comforting infants, swaddling seems to be used to restrict activity, as can be seen in this example. So it says, around 3 months, Molly, my future Olympic gymnast, discovered she could, while tightly swaddled, somehow flip herself over onto her stomach and wriggle backwards out of the swing. The first time I heard a thud and I found her on the floor in front of the empty swing grinning. I thought it was a fluke. But on the third, I had to concede that the days of her sleeping safely in the swing were over. So this baby, tightly swaddled, was habitually placed to sleep in an inclined swing device and yet managed to flip herself out 3 times before the parent conceded defeat. Despite parental perceptions, the swing as an inclined surface was never a safe place for the infant to sleep. And in this instance, the use of swaddling enabled poor practice. Swaddling can also be directly hazardous, particularly when the practice is extrapolated to other sleep situations or locations. There have been deaths associated with swaddling and car restraints, as shown here. Safe use of products often relies heavily on instructions and labeling, but communicating risk and influencing safe practice becomes challenging when products are combined and used by different carers. It is also challenging when images promoting unsafe practice, such as this, are posted by influencers. Health messaging rightly emphasises strategies to support infants to breathe, but many products are promoted with breathability claims that are unsubstantiated and sometimes misleading. Breathability is a marketing term that at present has no clear test method. It's often used when the product is air permeable, but the breathability of a product needs to examine the issue holistically. It needs to address the physiological hierarchy of no face occlusion, patent airways, unimpeded diaphragm, and chest excursion first. This Crescent womb product, again marketing the comfort of a womb-like environment, is made from air permeable mesh, and so it's unlikely to directly suffocate the infant if they tried to breathe through it. However, it places the infant in a chin to chest position with a curved back, increasing the risk of airway obstruction and impairing diaphragm movement, and creates other entanglement and fall hazards. And trawling through reviews revealed this post about an infant who flipped prone. So it says, I feel if I'd not been in the room and heard her muffled sounds, she would have suffocated, because unlike a flat crib, they cannot lift their head out of this if flipped on the stomach, like they could on a mattress. So the mothers rightly identified that the baby was unable to extract itself from that particular position. Some years ago, the website had been quoting an old AAP paper about delayed neuromuscular development of a premature infant nursed on flat cot mattresses to substantiate claims that this particular product improved development and reduced flat head in term infants. It also used to claim that Crescent womb reduced, and I quote, the environmental risk factors associated with SIDS. After complaints to the CPSC and AAP, Crescent womb remains on the market, but the marketing has changed. It now claims, incorrectly I believe, that it adheres to the AAP Safe Sleep Guidelines, and now helpfully says, steer clear of products that claim to reduce the risk of SIDS. It's best to avoid any product that says it can lower your baby's risk of SIDS because they haven't been proven safe or effective. So that's just warning off the competitors. So is breathability a real concept, and might it be important? A breathable design may further reduce sleep-related deaths where an infant ends up prone or with their face against another element of the product and is unable to extract themselves. Therefore, there is likely to be added risk reduction through designing products with breathable zones. But breathability needs to take into consideration things like resistance to airflow, dissipation of exhaled air and CO2, and inflow of fresh air. So this slide represents testing on a range of common sleep environment surfaces, including, most importantly, combinations of products. I'm part of a collaborative team discussing testing methods to assess a combination of mattress firmness, which is represented here inversely as surface displacement in blue, airflow resistance, which is in orange, and carbon dioxide rebreathing, which is assessed as how much exhaled CO2 can be re-extracted from the sleep surface. This is represented in grey. This is early research, but as this graph shows, there is no clear correlation between all factors. And I have to emphasize that this is testing real-life products. However, it seems that in terms of CO2 rebreathing, products with low air permeability, such as vinyl-covered mattresses or waterproofs, and products with very high air permeability, such as mesh surfaces, pose the lowest CO2 rebreathing risk. But these designs would still need to be firm, flat, and level. Unfortunately, product design and marketing outpaces regulation and research, and one example of this is the snooze sleeper, which has been designed by a pediatrician to settle fussy babies by restraining them on their backs. And you can see that this infant has been Velcroed into position with a little thing over his chest. It oscillates them at variable speeds, and I'll demonstrate this in a minute. It plays white noise to them at various levels, and it also allows parents to remotely settle the baby using a smartphone app. So the baby can actually be in the same room or in another room, and the parent can change the setting of the cot without actually attending to the baby. But I have to wonder how side-to-side oscillation compares to traditional rocking through a circumferential arc in terms of the forces on a developing neonatal brain. Are some infants more vulnerable to this movement? What decibel level is appropriate for a young infant? And I'll just start the video. So you can see the infant starts at low oscillation, but this increases later in the video. Then there are reports of the restraint band ending up at the top of the chest, and recommendations apparently from customer service to use weighted items like a bag of rice underneath the restraint system and on top of the baby's chest in order to settle them. This raises the risk of compression of the chest, but also the bag migrating up and occluding the face. So back to the Safe Sleep Guide. The ACCC are currently considering holistic regulation in the infant sleep space, which includes products used to settle and soothe. In particular, they are considering a ban on inclined sleep products, which is very welcome news. However, regulation requires surveillance and enforcement, and it would be better if the products on offer were designed to be safe in the first place. So this guide seeks to preemptively get industry, parents, regulators, and safe sleep advocates on the same page so that parents can buy better and we can all sleep better. The guide can be found on the Product Safety Australia website, and in light of some of the emerging hazards, version 2 will be coming soon. Thank you very much.